Margaret Thatcher's criminal legacy says hours after the death of the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, the history books are being rewritten and the beatification of the Iron Lady is well underway, it says. So David Cameron praised Lady Thatcher for having saved Britain and for making the has-been colonial power great again. So the tributes poured forth from French and German leaders. For American Secretary of State former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and the former Russian leader Gorbachev also lamented the loss of a historic world figure. Such fulsome praise may be expected coming from so many war criminals, but it is instructive of how history is written by the victors and criminals in high office. Obama, Cameron, Holland, Merkel should all be arraigned and prosecuted for war crimes in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Pakistan, Somalia, and Mali, among other places. Kissinger has long evaded justice for over 4 decades for his role in the U.S. genocide in Southeast Asia during the so-called Vietnam War, in which over 3 million people were obliterated in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The British state, which is basically the British taxpayers, to give Thatcher, who died this week, age 87, a full military honors funeral. The praised eulogies, wreaths, ceremonies are all self-indictments of association with one of the most ruthless and criminal political figures in modern times. Police have been injured and arrests made as hundreds celebrated the death of Margaret Thatcher. Police officers were injured and arrests were made as hundreds held parties celebrating the death of the former Prime Minister. It says here, 6 officers were injured as they tried to break up a gathering of around 200 people who were pelted with bottles and cans. In the South London suburb basically it was the scene of the fierce riots in 1981, just 2 years into her first time in office. Said some scaled the nearby ritzy cinema and changed the film listings to read Margaret Thatcher is dead. Some were carrying banners with one saying "Rejoice, Thatcher is dead." Also, there was anti-Thatcher graffiti scrawled on walls in Brixton saying, "You snatched my milk and our hope," and other reports of windows being smashed in shops. And here's just some pictures. British miners celebrate Thatcher's demise. It says the Durham Miners Association is celebrating the death of the Baroness Thatcher as a great day for coal miners. Their quote is saying, "It looks like one of the best birthdays I've ever had. There's no sympathy for me for what she did to our community. She destroyed our community, our villages, and our people," said David Hopper, General Secretary of Durham's Miners Association. "For the union, this could not come soon enough, and I am pleased that I have outlived her. It's a great day for all the miners, and I imagine we will have a counter-demonstration when they have her funeral, saying our children have no jobs, and the community is full of problems. There's no work and no money, and it's very sad of the legacy that she's left behind. She absolutely hated working people, and I have gotten very bitter memories of what she did. She turned all the nation against us, and the violence that was meted out on us was terrible. I would say to those people who want to mourn her that they're lucky that she did not treat them like she treated us." So one person said it's a very strange emotional feeling because her death brings back a lot of memories and opens up a wound that has never really healed. The cut went so deep, people have never been able to forget about it. It's something that they can never get out of their system. Chris Kitchen, this is what I'll finish up with, General Secretary for the National Union of Miners, said, "We've been waiting for a long time to hear the news of Baroness Thatcher's demise, and I can't say I'm sorry." My website is ggnonline.com, Global Government News. And on YouTube, it's DDarko 2012 and DDarko 2013. There's a poll up there. Do you feel that the mainstream media's coverage of North Korea is a diversion from something else? And the recent update is that I've been using Vimeo for basically my little video player. So they're back up and running now. Alienated white working classes should attend citizenship ceremonies to help them feel part of British society again, says Cameron's poverty czar. They said white working classes are unsure of identities. He told the conference that English society has lost confidence in what it is. The concerns over immigration's impact on white working class communities. They're so alienated from society that they should attend citizenship ceremonies with immigrants, according to David Cameron's poverty czar. Some working class people are increasingly unsure of their identities. He suggested that going to the wonderful citizenship ceremonies could help them feel like they were part of British society again. Says they needed to relearn the rules they used to live by. The man who could be the UK's first Jewish Prime Minister says he's a Zionist. The Labour Party leader Ed Miliband establishes his pro-Israel credentials like never before by stating that while he does not always agree with its government, he is intolerant of those who question Israel's right to exist. And that's all they have for non-subscribers. Russian Jews call for Israel not to give into Western peace calls. Prominent Russian Jewish businessmen, activists, and artists have called in a letter to the Israeli Prime Minister to pursue an independent policy and not give in to pressure from Western countries. They claim that they had learned about the letter. The signatories claim that they had learned about the letter sent to Prime Minister Netanyahu by 100 influential Jews from the U.S. who urged the national leader to show readiness to make territorial concessions for the sake of peace. Remember, I just was covering this recently. The Russian Jews assured that they were also concerned about Israel's security and guaranteed future, but urged the Prime Minister to make decisions on the basis of his own understanding of the situation and the interests of his country's citizens. We don't intend to build nukes, Israel told the United States in 1975. Newly published documents also shed light on Rabin and Peres' visits to Tehran in 1976 and the Dayan plan to give citizenship to Palestinians in Ramallah and Bethlehem. There's our Betty Kissinger right there. So, those were the good times, huh? Says here, it's like the good times without WikiLeaks when you can say all these nasty demonic plans in public, and like he said, and now you can't do it as much. Israel's leaders in private exchanges with senior U.S. officials in 1975 flatly denied that Israel possessed nuclear weapons, and Foreign Minister Alon also claimed Israel had no intention to build such weapons, according to diplomatic cables published by WikiLeaks. This despite the fact that, according to foreign reports, Israel is now believed to have begun full-scale production of nuclear weapons soon after the 1967 war and stockpiled a number of nuclear weapons by the early 70s. Thermonuclear war is nearing, says North Korea. In a Tuesday statement, North Korea's Asia-Pacific Peace Committee advised all foreigners in South Korea to take measures for shelter and evacuation in advance for their safety because, in case of war, we don't want foreigners living in South Korea to get hurt. The statement also added that the situation on the Korean peninsula is inching closer to thermonuclear war. On March 30th, North Korea declared that it is in a state of war with South Korea, warning that any provocation by the South and Washington will trigger an all-out nuclear war. And they just closed down a big economic sector near a border, like a trading hub, which was aimed at hitting back at South Korea, but like the reports are saying, it's going to hurt them just as much. Putin warns Korean crisis could be worse than Chernobyl. So he said on Monday he appealed for calm on the Korean peninsula, warning that the escalation of tension in the region could lead to a nuclear disaster far worse than the Chernobyl incident. He said they're concerned about the escalation in the peninsula because we are neighbors and because if, God forbid, anything should happen there, Chernobyl, of which we all know only too aware, would seem like mere child's play in comparison. I would like to call on everybody to calm down and to sit down at a negotiating table and calmly resolve the issues that have been accumulating there for many years. Japan deploys missile defenses in Tokyo amid North Korea concerns. Says Japan deployed missile defense systems at 3 sites around Tokyo early Tuesday ahead of possible missile launches by North Korea, the chief cabinet secretary had said. The Patriot missile batteries were set up in the central district, and it says the deployments come as U.S. and South Korean officials warned that North Korea could be preparing for another provocative move. Syria chemical weapons probe stalls as UN seeks nationwide mandate, so they're stalling is what they're doing. Ban Ki-moon probe of single incident requires additional task. Syrian government was eager for the UN to dispatch investigators after reported chemical weapons attack in Aleppo last month. Maintaining such a probe would prove the rebels were to blame. Now they say the probes are going to be stalled. That's because a call to probe a single incident has turned into a demand from the UN to have access to materially the entire country, saying the UN needs to perform additional tasks nationwide. The attack killed 25 people. So, it says here that Ban continues to insist a probe must happen without delay, but refuses to back off the demand to expand it nationwide despite the Syrian government refusing them access so long as they continue. They seek such a far-reaching mandate. In the end, this may keep the incident from ever being formally probed and investigated. Syrian rebels testing Tekkim chemicals on rabbits to use as chemical weapons. You've already seen this. But Tekkim is a Turkish chemical company. The video shows the rebels using these chemical containers with Tekkim labels, some lab equipment, while playing jihadist chants in the background. So go out and check it out. Links will be posted. Iraqi al-Qaeda and Syrian militants announced merger. So it's kind of like a corporate merger of terrorists. Al-Qaeda's branch in Iraq said it has merged with Syria's extremist al-Nusra, a move that shows the rising confidence of radicals within the Syrian rebel movement and is likely to trigger renewed fears among its international backers. Its international backers. See, that's financial talk. They're international investors of terrorism, right? So you're fighting terror in one part of the world and they're supporting terror in another part. So, yeah. And I don't think it's confidence of the rebels, actually. I think it's desperation. They're being pressured. There's pressure to get that done, to get him out of there, Assad. Tunisia now exporting jihadists, and it's for financial energy reasons, to run pipelines, like I said. It's all big business. Tunisia now exporting jihadists to Syria. Tunisian families have begun to dread knocks on their doors or late-night phone calls, fearing the messenger will bear the news that their son has been smuggled out of the country to join the jihad in Syria. So, John Kerry, says he will meet the Syrian terrorists in London. So a nice little tea and biscuits with some terrorists in London. That's what John Kerry will be doing, telling them, we got your back. You want $60 more million of taxpayer money to fund terrorism? You got it. Just next time, you hear, we're going to fight the war on terror, just make sure you close your eyes and earmuffs and stuff like that, because otherwise it won't make any sense. You'll have you start having smoke come from your ears, trying to make sense of it all. Civilian killed, 2 others injured in Damascus mortar attack. So again, more explosions and mortar attacks by the rebels. At least 1 civilian has been killed and 2 others injured as foreign-backed militants fighting against Syrian government target a residential area in western Damascus. So the mortar shells were fired by these terrorists, and it says the attack damaged a number of cars parked in the area. Suicide car bomb kills 15 in Damascus. So, and another long line of suicide attacks by rebel factions hit a business district in Damascus today near a public school. That's where they always seem to go, too. The attack killed 15 people and damaged surrounding buildings and wounded 53 others. Here's a question for you. Was the Iraq invasion worthwhile? This is Ask an Iraqi. In a recent interview with the New York Times, Toni Morrison said, I dare you to tell me a sane reason why we went to Iraq. Her request is not unreasonable. We've heard similar arguments over the past weeks as the 10th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq took place. So there's widespread agreement that the invasion was provoked by a series of lies, neuroses, venalities, and delusions. But it all comes down to money is what it is. Contractors reap $138 billion from Iraq war. Cheney's Halliburton, #1 with $39 billion. So it's good business. Maliki says, don't worry, America. Iraq is grateful. Iraq Prime Minister writes op-ed in Washington Post saying thank you. It says here, he assures Americans that Iraq is a sovereign partner for the U.S. and will remain grateful for the losses sustained by the military and civilian personnel. Any comments on Syria? So he goes on here, he says he wants a stable, cooperative relationship with Iran and doesn't support arming Syria's rebels. We have been mystified by what appears to be widespread belief in the United States that ousting Assad is all important. He writes, warning that, as in the Afghan-Soviet conflict, U.S. intervention could lead to a Syrian controlled in whole or part by Al-Qaeda. Guantanamo detainees brutally force-fed during hunger strike. Up to 130 of the 166 detainees left in Guantanamo are reported to be taking part in a hunger strike, with at least 11 being force-fed. It's being reported that these detainees are strapped in a 5-point restraint chair dubbed by some detainees as the torture chair, and large tubes that may be left in for days are jammed down their noses without anesthesia or lubricants. And they resist the brutal procedure. They are forcibly extracted from their cells by soldiers in full riot gear at the direction of the medical staff. Man, that sounds like a video that I saw of that one guy who was getting pepper sprayed, and he was in all these restraints. And the only thing I can get from it is that he didn't go to the doctor when he had a doctor's appointment or some crap. But they were in full riot gear in this little cell, and this guy was like in a little torture chair. So they're doing it in the prison cells here in the United States too. Indian on hunger strike for 12 years, charged with attempted suicide. So there she is right there in a force-feeding tube. Remember, the U.S. Army vet who joined Syrian rebels could face execution if it's determined he killed people while working for them. The defense attorney argued that al-Nusra, despite its close ties with al-Qaeda, materially is in line with U.S. interests of forced regime change in Syria, adding it is extremely unusual for the U.S. to charge a person who is fighting in a manner that is aligned with U.S. interests. So, I mean, there's something that he knows. And Mississippi will add terrorism to the list of crimes that could lead to the death penalty. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.